Hey guys, what's going on? This is your host Madman, and we are here to do another commentary track. And that commentary track is for the 2012 film The Comedy. This is a movie that has stuck in my mind since I first watched it a couple years ago, and I haven't rewatched it in a while. But I have a lot to say about it because I've thought a lot about it in different contexts since having first seen it. And it's a very weird movie. The opening scene, if you're actually watching along, is this very homoerotic, over the top, obviously lurid kind of scene. And I think this movie, as much as it lauds itself as like another Tim and Eric absurdist, Dadaist kind of comedic project. It's not directed by them, but they agreed to do it. And I don't know if they had any involvement in the writing of the script, but it suffices to say, this opening scene, of course, it's a sort of shock comedy type of thing on the surface, but I think it's trying to take advantage of the fact that anyone familiar with Tim and Eric is going to interpret anything like this as shock comedy. So it's actually looking at the Tim and Eric fan base and going, oh, you want more Tim and Eric? Oh yeah, here, check this out. And then it sort of tricks you, it sort of trolls you into watching this. Because this movie, as lurid and grotesque as it is on the surface, is extremely serious. And it's one of the most somber, kind of depressing movies that I've ever seen. Right up until the last about 5 seconds of the movie, where there's this sort of glimmer of hope. I would compare this to The Road with Viggo Mortensen in terms of how bleak it is, which again is going to sound kind of absurd or insane if you've actually seen this movie or if you've heard about it or its plot. Again, I'm not claiming anybody is wrong for interpreting it as just another absurdist, Dadaist kind of project. But what makes it so interesting is that the sort of typical absurdism of Tim and Eric's comedy is used as a kind of facade, and the main character, of course, is a human emblem of that use of comedy to sort of cope with how fucked up reality is. Which in the end is really what all comedians are trying to do. They're trying to monetize their coping mechanism with the absurdity of reality. And it's a way of doing so, if it's done well, that helps other people who are also going through existence. If you're able to appreciate some comedy, it's cathartic. It reduces your stress. It does a whole bunch of things biochemically that are beneficial, but it also does a lot of things emotionally and mentally that are harder to concretize with scientific terms. So Tim's character in this, he's basically a spoiled kid. He was born to rich parents. He never really had to do anything specific with his life. And as a result of his upbringing and his general attitude and his way of coping with the absurdity of reality, he's sort of stuck in this kind of childlike mentality. And as an adult, even watching his own father die, he's sort of been fossilized by indifference. He's kind of mentally fossilized to the point where if he has any genuine empathy, he just sort of buries it or ignores it or covers it up with comedy. And he's gravitated towards a group of friends that do the same thing. And what's interesting about the opening scene with all the homoerotic dancing with the beer, which looks like cum, is you have all these people who've sort of been stuck in this same mentality of permanent mental childhood, and they're trying to cope with it as best they can because they have to live in society. They don't want to go off and live in the woods or live under a bridge as a hobo. So their only way of existing in a society that prevents them from or inhibits them somehow, whether intentionally or not, from maturing. Their only way of existing in that kind of infantilizing corporate technocracy type of society is to lash out in these bizarre ways using comedy. But it doesn't always work, and it's sort of starting to fail. Like this guy is realizing that his attitude is no longer sustainable. It's not actually giving his life any meaning because no one's laughing at him. And you could also interpret that, the ineffectualness of his humor, ineffectuality of it. I don't know which word is correct, but people don't respond to his jokes. Like this nurse that's taking care of his dad, he's basically grilling the guy. He's like roasting him. It's like a Hollywood roast. And the guy's just he's being mature. He's being an adult. He's just not reacting. He's exercising self-control. He's aware that Tim's character is coping with a very weird, socially unacceptable way of speaking. And he's just sort of presenting him with this blank, statuesque, fluoride-eyed stare in response. He's not getting angry. He's not lashing out. And Tim is not impressed. He's like, you get a sense that Tim is old enough and smart enough in this, despite his immaturities, that he knows that response that this nurse is giving him is just the nurse's way of coping. It's this kind of blankness. It's like, well, I'm just going to not laugh, and I'm not going to get angry. I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to shut my emotions off. And you get a sense that that's what Tim is dissatisfied with, Tim's character, rather, in this movie, is he's like, I just want someone to fucking react to what I'm saying. And everyone is so conditioned and so soulless, from my perspective, that they don't even react anymore. Whether they hate what I'm saying or they find it funny, they don't do anything. They suppress their emotions and their reactions to such an extent that I think in this movie, Tim and his friends' characters are sort of this one extreme of absurdist, childlike people. But the problem is, the very fact of their existence reveals that almost everybody around them that they interact with in the movie is similarly brainwashed or mentally fucked, to the point where they don't have any way of allowing their own true emotions to actually surface. They're so conditioned and so fossilized, I'll use that term again, in their own way, that they can't even be human beings. There are times when you have to yell at someone. There are times when you might have to fight someone. Hopefully you don't, but that's going to happen in your life. And the fact that society has reached a point now with how it coddles us, that it suppresses everybody to a degree that makes us into inhuman NPCs. That's what this movie really is trying to say, I think. If you want to talk about how it's being philosophical or whatever point it's trying to make. He's drinking all the time because he just wants to feel something, feel anything. That's an obvious trope. That's not new in this movie, but what makes this movie so great is it just goes totally ham into the contrast, and it's unrealistic. It's campy. It's absurd. I compared it to Dadaism too, which was this movement in the 50s and 60s where artists would just go and make random sounds. They would just sort of shut their brains off and try to sound like animals. They would try to sort of reject industrialized or technocratic society in whatever way they could, even if it made them seem absurd, even if it was humiliating to them, right? And you get the sense in this movie, Tim doesn't care if he's humiliated. He doesn't give a shit. In this scene, he's going and helping out these gardeners that are working for his dad or working for him. He's like, I'm so desperate for any meaning in my life. Maybe I'll go try being a farmer. Maybe I'll go try doing manual labor. Maybe that'll give me some meaning in my life. That's something that a lot of younger millennials and Gen Z people are doing. Is they're like, well, I'll go work on a farm because I'm sick of being online all the time. And it's like, that's not going to give you meaning. That's just another way of running away. If you lack meaning in your life, it means that there's a deeper problem than just your environment or your friend group or what you're doing as a job. Those things can hamper you. They can weigh you down. But I really think this movie's trying to say something beyond that, because that's a very common thing. And this movie sticks with me. It fucks with me in a way. It's like a little night light in the back of my head that won't shut itself off. And that, to me, indicates that there's something profound about this. as cliche and gay and Reddit or whatever as that sounds, I think this movie is actually quite profound. And that's probably why it's been slept on. It's why nobody really gives a shit about it, because its message is so obfuscated by the conditioning that we've all been subject to that it's hard to see this. It doesn't mean you're an idiot if you haven't noticed this movie, if you haven't interpreted it the same way I did. I'm not implying that. I'm not being some kind of elitist prick. What I am saying is that it took me multiple watchings of this to really appreciate it. Which is the mark of good art, is that it draws you in and says there's something you need to see here, even if it takes you multiple viewings, and if the piece of media, whatever it is crafted right, you'll be compelled to watch it. So again, he's sort of playing the role of this gardener. He's just sort of trying to fuck with these richoids, He's like, oh yeah, I'm a worker just like these guys, and aren't you fascinated by your racist exoticizing of Hispanic culture? Like, I'm a white guy, and I'm gonna pretend to be one of these guys. How will you react to that? The whole idea of using like racist commentary or commenting on race in any way as a form of comedy, like even that's not working, because these people are so their whole brains are like porcelain veneers. Like they've replaced their actual souls, their actual minds with like performative gloss, to the point where they're just like, well, I am a rich white elite woman, and he's like, I'm a rich white elite man, and I will just be that forever. Like, that's so fucked, man. Like, people don't realize how insane that attitude is, and when you adopt it, you sacrifice your soul. From the point of view of Tim's character, he's like, you guys you've given something up that you didn't even understand the value of, and I think that's a lot of what the West in general has given up. And the reason I bring that topic up is I watched a great What If Alt Hist video about modernity recently, and the guy was talking about how modernity is like this thing, it's like a synthetic soul, like it replaces your genuine sense of beauty and creativity, which is inexorably tied to childlike play. Like, again, this sounds corny, but it's true. When you lose your sense of fascination and wonder with reality, whatever makes you lose that is evil. Even if it's something that claims it's trying to make you mature or make you responsible or make you competent or make you a good worker, I think anything that asks you to give that up is evil, and it should be avoided or destroyed. The only two responses to anything that asks you to give up that part of your soul is you either avoid it, you stay the fuck away from it, or you try to destroy it. And that's what heroes do in mythical narratives, is they destroy things that try to destroy the soul. And that's what this movie's really trying to say, is it's saying that modernity is like this hell. It's like this cage we've built for ourselves, this prison, which is also what My Dinner with Andre says, which is a movie I'm never going to do a commentary on, because the movie describes itself better than any commentator ever could. This movie's doing things more symbolically, so it's not as difficult to talk about. We have Eric here talking about comedy. Immediately sabotage them. Yeah, that's what this movie's trying to do, is it's saying a lot of the people who probably watched this were expecting a literal comedy. Whether they looked up who was directing it or not, He's talking about what is a sense of humor, And Eric, of course, he's so dry in this. He's like the fucking Sahara, and he's using like internet level irony. It's even beyond that. He's taking it to like this extreme of just like nothing I say matters, and I don't even care how you interpret it. Like that's the level of like cynical irony that's in this. And there are other comedic groups that have done this in different ways. MDE traffics in it, but MDE doesn't really go this far. This is a drama. This is supposed to be a serious movie at its core. It's just using absurdist and Dadaist comedy to appear, grotesque and stupid, to hide what it's trying to say. And I think realizing that doesn't make the movie worse. It makes it more effective. This guy's like, he's almost like he's auditioning for like a late night comedy type thing. He's saying, here's my routine. And Tim and Eric are like, you're not funny, man. Like, you're not sufficiently detached and cynical for us, because our definition of comedy is totally soulless. Like, when you live in a soulless world, the only way to communicate comedically is to make your comedy soulless. Like, it's such a fucking hell. Like, the current society that we're in the West, in a lot of ways, is a hell for comedians specifically. Like, to be a comedian and to say what you want to say comedically, if it's good, if it's effective, to actually be able to say it is like going through hell. And maybe that's always been the case. Maybe it's a naive thing to assume that that's new. But man, I mean, this fucking movie, man. I mean, there's an obvious allegory, too, that I meant to mention earlier, which is the Divine Comedy by Dante, which implies that sinners who are suffering in hell are a kind of comedic entertainment for the angels that are watching. Or, you know, in my personal preferred cosmology or interpretation of reality, the aliens that brought us here are fascinated by how we respond to being implanted in ape bodies, and they're you know, they're on their spaceship, or they're up in the fifth dimension, or wherever the fuck, I don't know. Whoever or whatever is voyeuristically enjoying our presence here is fascinated by how we adapt to being in these bodies. And, you know, if the spiritual interpretation's true, it's the same thing. It's just different terms used to describe the same situation. The situation is you have mortal people, human beings, on a planet or a flat plane or a dome or a cube or whatever the fuck. We're here on this earth, and there seems to be some kind of persistent obsession that we have that somebody's watching us. And maybe nobody is. Maybe we're alone and we're inventing, you know, gods. That's what I used to believe back when I went through my sort of edgy atheist phase when I was younger. Before I discovered Gnosticism and got hypnotized by that mind virus, which is its own flawed thing. It's just something people made up. It's just another narrative. Don't take it any more seriously than Scientology. Gnosticism and Scientology are about equivalent in their truth. And then I love this. He's trying to impress this girl by just saying crazy shit. He's like, if I just have weird, unique opinions, will you be fascinated enough with me to fuck me? And she is. Like it's amazing. Like, he's being a total sued. You know, this is sort of what I do on this channel at times, is I'm just you know, talking to entertain myself more than I am you guys, which should be obvious by this point. But my point isn't to you know, focus on that. It's to talk about Tim's character here, and what he's trying to say is he's like, well, you know, oh, we should return to feudalism because it was more meaningful. And he doesn't really believe that. He doesn't believe anything. He's just rehashing things that he's thought about that he still can't assign any meaning to. He's like, this world is so fucking hollowed out and soulless that no alternative to it appeals to me. Like, even death doesn't appeal. Like, I might as well just stay here until I rot. Like, there's nothing that I can do or say or be that will make this life meaningful. The only thing that gives me any sense of entertainment and any sense of meaning is fucking with people, is being a comedian. And even that is difficult to do because, again, no one wants to laugh at you. Like, if you're part of the Divine Comedy and you can't see the reactions of the higher beings laughing at your suffering, if you're not given access even to that, then you have nothing. You don't even have an audience. You know, you have to imagine an audience. And the only alternative is, well, you have to use the people around you as your audience. And it's a sort of pseudo-psychopathic or sociopathic approach to life that is a trap you can fall into, like any behavioral or philosophical or religious trap. It's easy to fall into it. And for some people that works. Some people it makes them have a real meaningful, interesting life that is good. So I'm not knocking any one of them. I'm just saying, for this character in this context, in this narrative, in this movie, and I just love this. He's like, oh, you know, I'm not a Nazi, but he's just like, how shockable is this person? You know, what can I say to them? What are their limitations for you know, being with me? I mean, this to me reminds me of when I tried to make a Bumble dating profile. And I was thinking, man, I can't be actually honest on here about what I want. You know, I have to sort of present this approved facade, and you know, what is the level of honesty that I should be comfortable with? What is going to seem not overly honest? What is going to seem not creepy? How real should I be? How genuine should I be? You know, what lies should I choose as my little veneer? Like this movie uses the over the top comedy as its veneer to hide its message. I mean, it's the same type of thing. You know, he's trying to seduce this girl, and he's just like, oh, you know, I know all these weird facts. Like, if I list off weird trivia to you, is that going to hypnotize you into fucking me? Like, that's what dating has become. And on that topic, I'm not saying that that's better or worse than some community leader or some patriarch or matriarch or whatever saying to you, well, you will marry this person because the community has decided it. Like, it's not any better or worse than that. It's just a different kind of hell. Like, it's just you know, oh, you want to be free, you want to choose who you want to be with and be intimate with and have kids with. Fine, have your freedom. It's going to be 1,000 times harder for you to find anybody. You know, you wanted freedom, here it is. Right? That's what we've sort of done in the West with dating and coupling, is we've said, unless you join a group or a community, unless you consign your will to some larger group of people, you are going to be subject to the D&D dice rolls of fate, which means you might die an old man alone in your bed, choking on your own blood, with no one around to read you your last rites. And I love this scene too, where he's just sort of, it's not scientific, he's not picking at her in a weird way. He's just, it's like he's never seen a woman before. It's like he's curious. He's like, is this it? Like, is this really it? Like this flesh, like this thing, is this it? Is this all that love is? Is it just this physical dance of social manipulation? Like, is that it? Like, there must be something greater than that. And he's just pulling at her eye. I mean, God, this movie is so painfully beautiful. It vacillates from like an exaggerated parody of like Adam Sandler films to like the most soul-crushing shit you've ever seen. And it does so over and over again till you're just, by the end of the movie, you're about to become as numb as Tim's character is. You're about to be totally mind wiped. And then there's this moment of I mean, it's got some problems. It's got some creepy interpretations to it. But the last few seconds of this movie are kind of incredible. They're kind of unbelievable in their implications. Like given if you can suffer through the whole movie, which is like an exercise in cringe endurance. It's like watching the Chris Chan documentaries. I can't even watch that shit. You know, his friend fucking Greg Turkington here, he's just talking about, again, the dialogue is all just gross, you know, low tier, low effort subject matter, but it's you know, it's cranked up to a degree where, again, I think this movie is almost a jab at Adam Sandler films. It's like, oh, you want to hear us talk about gross shit? Sure, listen to this, you know. I'm talking a lot for this movie because I've wanted to talk about it for a while. So again, you know, I hope you guys are using subtitles, the two of you that are watching this. But this movie's worth seeing. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of incredible. He's talking about, oh, just turn my apartment into a hobo jungle. You know, a lot of this is improvised, and not all these exchanges or conversations are that interesting. He's like, oh yeah, hobos are tidy people. Just when you think he might be making some legitimate logical argument like, well, they have to be clean because they don't have access to showers. Like, he doesn't say that. He just goes off on some lurid tangent. Like, he doesn't even... Lipo dicks are cleaner than hospital scalpels. They've taken them under microscopes. God damn. It's so fucking funny, man. Holy shit. They're washed so repeatedly. It's like this is the darkest comedy I've ever fucking seen, straight up. If you know a comedy that's darker than this, hit me up. This is like a comedic black hole. This is the darkest comedy I've ever fucking seen. Which again, you know, your comedy can't be dark unless you're trafficking with some kind of heavy subject matter. And obviously this movie is. But goddamn. Like, I don't know when Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie came out. I want to say it was around the time this did. It seems like that was kind of it was Tim and Eric trolling their fans, and then this movie was what they sort of did at the same time, where they were like, we want to do something that actually means something to us. You know, it's nothing new to disguise social criticism as commentary. That's been done for 500 years at least, if not 1,000. But the way this movie does it is not anything close to anything else I've seen. It's just... I'm not even saying this movie's a masterpiece. Like, it's not amazing. There's a lot of weak moments. There's a lot of improv that doesn't really work. It's kind of self-indulgent at points, but even having said all that, it's unique. It's different enough from other shit I've seen that I remember it, and you know, maybe that's a low standard to have, but it's a sort of gateway standard, where something will speak to you more if you pay attention to it in the first place, and tricking someone these days into paying attention to something for more than 15 minutes, more than 5 minutes, more than 30 seconds is a fucking feat unto itself. And, you know, you have the song choices here, you know, Life is a Lie, blah, blah, blah. Again, go watch the What If Alt Hist video called What is the Modern World, where he talks about Gnosticism and how it influenced globalist ideals and practices. It's very interesting. You know, seeing the material world as an illusion, it's precisely contrary to what Aristotle said. And I think Aristotle surpasses Plato. I think Plato was... he may have just been trying to one-up Aristotle. And in doing so, he may have doomed an entire civilization of people thousands of years after he died, just by trying to use rhetoric to be more interesting. That may have been all he was trying to do. But this whole idea that the material world is a flawed copy of something, I mean, even if that's true, the creepiest thing about that interpretation is, well, if you believe that, it's actually more beneficial to you in your life, practically, to trick yourself into thinking that's not true, and thinking that reality is just what it is. Because you can't have any sort of life that positively impacts anyone around you if you think everything's fake, if you genuinely believe that. And that's sort of what Tim's character believes in this. He's like, well, this is all bullshit. And the true version of that perspective is, well, modern society is itself a construct. That's absolutely true. But if you take that to an extreme, philosophically, you know, you end up with Platonic forms and all sorts of, you know, esoteric interpretations about quantum illusions and video games. You know, my personal perspective on that is, if reality is a video game being played by higher beings, that doesn't make it any more interesting or valuable or meaningful. Like, what does that really change about how you live your life? You know, oh, nothing matters. Oh, I should just do nothing. It's like, well, if nothing matters, why not do something? Like, you know, if you want to do nothing, fine. Okay, that's equivalently meaningful, you know, to doing something. if you want to get really fucking basic about it. But, you know, in this movie, these characters are sort of on that threshold where they're like, well, the only thing that's meaningful to me to even do is to be a crazy troll and just sort of fuck with people around us and make jokes all the time. And it's like, well, you know, yeah, you could do that. You know, you could feed a village of people in Africa, and then that village could be slaughtered by a warlord a week after you fed all those kids too. Like, if you want to sympathize with these characters, you have to kind of understand where their mental state is. They're very demoralized, and their whole outlook on life is just, you know, either we've had so much suffering levied upon us, or we've had so much privilege. And both of those things, if taken to an extreme, will do the same thing. They have the same effect. You just become numb at the end. And in that numbness, they're like, well, all we can do is make, you know, weird comedy. You know, they're biking around fucking L.A. Oh, they're drinking beers. They got Ray-Bans on. Ooh. At the time this movie came out, Ray-Bans were so fucking hot. Like, everybody wanted Ray-Bans. That's intentional. Ray-Bans and Milwaukee's Best beer are an intentional choice in this to portray these people as, like, pretentious hipsters. But the irony is they're not even pretentious. Like, Tim's conversation with the girl he fucks, that's pretentious. He's trying to come off as intelligent to her. But here he is out on his boat. You know, you've got this kind of solitary. The image of a single guy on a boat is kind of cliche. Ever since I saw Good Will Hunting for the first time, I look at that image as cliche, because Matt Damon's character he tries to fuck with Robin Williams by pointing out, like, oh, you're a lonely man on a boat. You know, that's never been done before. And it's like, yeah, he's right. It's a common theme. But, you know, in this movie, things are more grounded, and you know, Tim's boat is where the encounter with the woman took place. You know, it's like the siren in the narrative of Odysseus. You know, he fucks this woman, but she's not even able to hypnotize him with her song. Also, he's in this creepy underground pool. There was a famous island with a pool like this, or a famous house that had a pool like this, that may or may not have been used for heinous acts. And I'm reminded of that. There's a circular Italian dish that served as a cryptic moniker for the type of things that were going on in this pool, this indoor pool with white tiles. It's kind of creepy that Tim wanders around in here and he seems kind of distressed. Like he's kind of conflicted while he's standing in this pool. Very interesting. Wonder what that could symbolize. If you connect it to real world events going on around 2012 or 2013, wonder what that could symbolize. Kind of interesting. And again, he's trying to sort of fuck with this other woman here, talking about slaves. You know, what if I say something controversial? Will you give a shit? Will you fuck me if I'm edgy and controversial? Will I get money and attention if I'm edgy and controversial? Some skin making furniture. Jesus Christ. Makes it nice. I can't hear Tim's accent right now, but I remember watching this. Slave meat. Jesus Christ. As it should be. God bless him. Your sense of humor ain't died. And she's so resistant. It's like she doesn't want to enable him, or I mean, in the context of the movie, I think the actress is genuinely trying not to laugh, which is, you know, adds a dimension of this. Adds another dimension to this. That's funny, but again, that's all surface level shit. Like, you're not meant to, for the movie to incept its dramatic, serious message into your mind. You have to be cognizant of the surface level shit going on. And this hits hard for me, man. I have a relative who's mentally pretty damaged. When Tim talks about it, he's like, oh, the other brother's in the loony bin. It fucks with your perception of your own competence when you have a relative that's afflicted with something that serious. Is you start to doubt your own competence and undervalue your existence. You know, like you think on one level, oh, I shouldn't breed because I'm just passing on rotten genes. You know, it's very serious shit. It's the proudest thing to be in this family. Come swallow. And again, I wanted to mention this earlier too, I forgot. A lot of this movie can be seen as a critique of Hollywood and the system where you have to perform sexual favors to get roles and whatnot, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. That's why the system is so fucked up, is they don't discriminate, you know. It'd be less fucked up if they discriminated, because at least then they'd have a preference. At least then they'd be narrowing their focus, you know. Not saying misogyny is better, not saying misandry is better, but it's just fucked up. It's like, oh yeah, if you're a guy and you do something humiliating, yeah, we'll give you a movie deal. You know, good for you. Honor and virtue, they're dead. You know, they're relics of the past. Honor and virtue are very useful things. They limit behavior, and yes, they can cause conflict. Yes, they can inflame stubbornness. The worst thing about honor and virtue, as emotional concepts, is they inflame stubborn conflict. But if your goal is just to get rid of conflict, that's never going to happen. That'd be like, my goal is to blow up the sun. You know, my goal is to make it so that we don't need oxygen. Like that's so fundamental to our existence here that it's impossible to eliminate or even diminish it meaningfully. And I love this scene too, just on another fucking tangent. It's like a fucking Dutch painting. Like the lighting is great, but then you have Tim, you know, flaunting his out of shape body intentionally. You know, he's on this fucking Victorian fainting couch, and you know the irony about all those Victorian paintings you see is the bodices and corsets and all those things. They're all sort of paintings. They're illusions over top the out of shape, rich, inactive bodies that they were put on. Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's not Milwaukee's Best, it's Pabst. That's what he's drinking. He's like, give me a glass, man. I'm sophisticated. I want to feel sophisticated when I drink my absolute garbage beer. That is one of the worst tasting beers, I gotta say. Back in my beer drinking days, I tried that once. I was like, okay, this isn't worth the fucking aluminum that it's in. And again, he's sort of desperate to like flex as a working class guy. Like he's like maybe if I work a shitty menial job, that'll give my life more meaning. Maybe that'll help me. And it's like, no, it's not going to help you, dude. Your problem is deeper than that. It's worse than that. Kind of the fucking over-interpretive part of me is going, well, he's talking about reality. He's like, you've got to attract more upper dimensional players to this place because people are leaving because they're bored. They keep coming down here and it's just boring. And it's like, well, can we go back to hunter-gatherer mode? And it's like, well, no, that won't work because that's also, you know, that's also been done. He's putting on fucking the way he's talking to these people. He's trying to provoke them. He's trying to antagonize them. Nobody reacts. That's an important thing to remember in this movie is no one reacts. No one beats him up. No one yells at him. Everybody just goes, oh, this guy's just drunk or he's just fucked up. You know, they're kind of suspicious. They're kind of pissed off internally, but they're just like, it's not worth it. You know, why would I react to this guy? Like it's this this dystopian, hellish portrayal of a society where no one feels the need to be direct in confrontation. Not even indirect confrontation. They're not even saying anything. It's like they've been censored. It's like they've been silenced. They can't do anything. They feel that the best reaction socially is to just smile and nod and do nothing. And so, apart from wider society decaying as a result of that, you have this poor fucker, this comedian, where no one gives a shit about his comedy anymore, because his comedy, it's like it's from another planet or another age. Like, it doesn't track, it doesn't connect with anybody, because everyone's been so heavily programmed to not respond and be passive and peaceful. You know, just all he does is shake his head. Like, nobody does anything. And he wants that reaction. He wants that retaliation. He's like, give my life some fucking meaning. React to what I'm doing. React to what I'm saying. You know, you're so cold and fucking machinic and soulless and calculative in your responses. You know, depending on the person he's talking to, there's a myriad of ways of responding that are just soulless. Like, there's no meaning to any interaction anymore, because every interaction is just, you know, this neo-Victorian facade of prudishness and politeness. Like, there's no reality to anything. Nobody actually reacts at all. You know, the flip side is somebody, you know, beats the shit out of you or kills you based on something you say, which I don't think is any better. But the point is that this movie is trying to talk about this social extreme, this social environment where the expectation is so twisted in the opposite direction that no one can fucking react at all emotionally. Like, you know, it's like there's a invisible social credit system in place where nobody can be human. You know, the ideal has been mutated or transmuted into something so inhuman that no one can actually be a human being. And if there's enough social pressure, man, people will comply with that. People will do it. He has to go to the fucking YMCA or whatever to get, like, running water. His boat's run out. His little alien skiff that he used to get to Earth, he's like, fucking thing. I'm thinking about the color of his glasses. It's like the inverse of rose-colored glasses. He's seeing things through blue-colored glasses. Ocean-colored, I don't know what you would call that. But, you know, rose-colored glasses is a common trope where you see the world as more romanticized or better than it is. And he seems to have the opposite problem if the glasses are actually intentionally meant to symbolize anything. He's seeing things through these cold blue lenses, these blue frames, rather. And maybe that's making him see things too pessimistically. Maybe that's, you know, representative of his problem with his personality. He's so fucking pessimistic. You know, he can't find value in existence anymore because everything's too watered. Too cold. The techno idiot says scrap meat to the renderer. Well, that's relevant with AI coming about. God damn. Every so often you find a line in an old movie, you know, in the wake of all this AI hype that we're having, which I don't think is going to amount to anything. Not for another 30 years. It's always 30 years away. It's like fusion. It's like, guys, we just invented fusion. Don't worry, we'll have real plants within a few years. And then eventually they're like, well, it'll be 30 years away. And then 30 years go by and they're like, oh, we made in advance. You know, it's all a fucking scam. And so finally he gets a job. He's like, what if I just wash dishes? Like, will that reconnect me with normal people? Will I be able to be an adult, a responsible adult who washes dishes for a living? What a noble pursuit. What if I washed someone else's dishes? Would that give me a sense of empathy? Would it make me give a shit about normal people if I replicate their behavior? And it's like, no, dude, that's not going to help. You got to go into yourself. He's so fucking desperate to externalize his internal shit that he's going through that he's like, well, I'll just change my external behavior and that'll solve the problem. That's one of the oldest traps you can fall into, and there are a lot of therapists who won't even tell you that. It's hard to express. It's hard to. You can't just tell someone that and have them, agree to do it. Have them agree to try it. But anyway, the similar trap, if you're, in my experience anyway, in my life, women do this more than men, where they'll move around physically. They'll be like, I just have to move to a different place, and then I'll be a different person. And it's like, well, guys do that too, but it's the same type of trap where it's like, well, you can't think that remixing your external environment is going to have any profound effect on your internal state or your sense of self. You have to actually sit the fuck down and confront yourself in a way that's way more difficult and way more brutal than that. And that's what none of these guys are doing. They're just kind of stagnant. They're just kind of, waiting for death to end things for them. They can't even kill themselves. They probably want to. Oh, I'm sorry, YouTube. They can't commit on life. I'm from a country where we euthanize people, and I can't even say the word suicide. I feel like Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. It's like, we won't let our pilots write the word fuck on the side of our bombers, but we can burn villages down. Again, that's what this movie's trafficking in, is that kind of confrontation with the absurdity of modern existence, with modern society's duplicitous contradictions, and how they if you let them, they'll drive you nuts. Maybe that's by design, who knows, but this is one of my favorite scenes. This makes me laugh my ass off, where they're like, why don't you have some radio in this cab? Why don't you have satellite radio? Why don't you pay more for satellite radio to entertain me for 15 minutes? And then they start talking about like hip hop, and they start like making up a hip hop beat. Oh my god, this is so fucking funny. Give me some hip hop. It's three white dudes in a cab. They're like, we want hip hop, some black music. Again, cab driver doesn't react. He's like, these are my clients. I have to be stone-faced and stoic. This whole movie is like a giant middle finger up the ass of stoicism. That's what this movie is saying. It's saying stoicism's useful, but if you take it to an extreme, you're just pretending not to see how bad your society is, how bad things have gotten. You can take stoicism to an extreme like you can anything. And it sort of does the same thing with comedy, too. It's like, well, if you're just being a comedian all the time, you're just avoiding confronting some part of yourself that bothers you, that you haven't been able to accept. If there's a part of you that you can't get rid of, or you can't change, the only alternative is to accept it. If you try to deny it, you'll just rot. Your mind and your soul, your spirit, your consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it'll just rot. Take a magic stick. Think about God. This is their epic criticism of religion. I love you, my Christ. My vampire lord, yes, I will drink your blood. Yes, I will do whatever you say. He puts it in his mouth. Again, they're behaving like children. Like, imagine these adult male characters in this movie replaced with the characters from Stand By Me by Stephen King, and their dialogue is exactly what it would be, which again I think it's an intentional thing. I think that this movie is kind of commentating upon actors in general, or at the very least comedic actors in general, and how stubbornly childlike they are, and that stubborn childishness is not necessarily a creepy thing. It's not necessarily something that is indicative of mental illness. It's just these people are responding to the world they find themselves in by defaulting to an earlier state of behavior because the reality around them is so fucked, and they have enough insight or intelligence, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't mean they're geniuses, but they have enough awareness to just look around them and go, this reality is insane. This is fucked up. No one wants to acknowledge it. Everybody just wants to get their paycheck and go home and watch TV. Again, not a profound criticism, not a new thing. But the point is that the way of responding to that malicious kind of society, that kind of anti-human society, in the context of this movie for these characters, is to just be a comedic, childlike idiot and to just make fun of everything. And the problem is, in this movie, it's so fucking bleak because even that response, which is like their last ditch effort, it's like, oh, this is my last attempt to keep my soul intact. Even that's ineffective because nobody reacts anymore. And that attitude is dependent on reaction. Like, if you're a comedian, if your audience doesn't laugh, you get no reaction. You are abandoned. You are rejected. You're fucked. If you've defaulted to that sort of comedic response to reality and you get no reaction for it, I mean, that'd be like praying to God and getting nothing in return. Not even the illusion of your life improving. Like, maybe your life gets worse, right? And oh yeah, Job, he suffered nobly, Just keep suffering. I'm sure things will get better for you. Or maybe they won't. Maybe them not getting better is actually a lesson for you to improve. This whole movie is shitting on those ideas. It's saying, that's another con, it's another scam, it's another way of controlling your behavior and making you more compliant to those people who have positioned themselves above you through family, mostly through just inheritance. I mean, most powerful people just inherit power. They don't actually create it. It's very odd and very rare that people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg actually pop up out of a society. That's very strange. I mean, Musk is not a good example because his family owned fucking gem mines in South Africa. I mean, he came from money. But Zuckerberg was some random nerd, and he just realized how stupid people were, and he could manipulate their willingness to donate information. That's what he realized. So he was a vampiric, parasitic opportunist, like most of these tech people are. And unfortunately, there are comedians who do that too. There are comedians who look at a particular demographic that's been ignored by mainstream comedy, and they go, well, I can make comedy for Mormons, or I can make comedy for Bible Belters, or I can make comedy for right-wingers. And they go, I'm just going to suck blood from that demographic. Tasty. Doesn't it taste good? If I tailor my comedy to a particular group, then, I can come across as a rebel. I can disguise myself as some kind of counterculture rebellious figure, some kind of pseudo-messiah, some kind of fake father figure for people, and then, I can just slowly and carefully extract money from these people, and usually it's from their parents, not from them. And I can make a living off of it, which is a hell of a con. I mean, that's, if you're the type of person to do that, I mean, goddamn, you should be a star in this movie. You basically are. You're basically in this movie if that's what you've done. Hope you enjoy it. You're a comedian talking to people who are going to very slowly and steadily detach from your comedy as they mature. And their kids are not going to get what you're doing. And you're going to fade. Not gracefully. It's never graceful. It's always humiliating. You always get humiliated in the end in a way that you could never have anticipated. You could never have humiliated yourself enough to inoculate yourself from the humiliation that will come for you in the end. If you're not afraid of death, humiliation will take its place in a form that you couldn't have conceived. That's the credo of the West. God, they're bothering this poor fucking cab driver. These are the scenes that are like, it's too cringy, man. Like, I don't... He's like, I'll give you money. I'll pay you. $100 for 20 minutes. $200. What person would ever agree to this deal? Like, the insurance potential for this, if you're even half conscious, is ridiculous. You know, no one would agree to this. It's like your comedic self trying to tell your body, you know, oh, for $200 worth of alcohol, I'll reduce your inhibitions for a night. He's like, this is not a playground. It is a playground, man. That's the irony. He's trying to ingratiate him with business terms. $400. Hell of a lot of money, especially in 2012. That's fucking 12 years ago. Again, you know, there's a political immigrant allegory here with like, oh, we pay immigrants to do shitty jobs, like blah blah blah. Like, yeah, of course that's part of this. That's not the point. The point is the characters and the implications of what they're doing. The point is not the context. Context is such a fucking demon sometimes. It's like context can serve anybody's needs at any time of interpretation or justification. And oftentimes, most of the time in my experience, it just obscures the literal concrete images that you're seeing in the work of art. Like, oh, I'm going to contextualize this work of art. I'm going to interpret it. And I'm going to argue that my interpretation is based on context. And it's like, your context is just as fallacious and subjective as whatever your viewpoints are. Like, you know, if you were picking dandelions as a kid and your grandpa smacked you for doing it because you were getting dandelion goop on your hands, or whatever, you know, pick your example. That could inform your contextualization as much as some education would have. Like, there's no... man, this movie's tempting me to be to be nihilistic and subjective. That's what's going on. But the role reversal here, you know, it's concurrent with the role reversal where Heidekher's character is like, well, I'm gonna plant plants in a garden for 5 minutes, and then I'll understand the experience of working as a Mexican immigrant to the States who does that for 30 years. Like, I'll do it for 5 minutes, you know, and somehow now I have the authority or have the personal vindication to not feel like a rich asshole. Like he's so insecure with being what he is that he's like, you know, if I can just pretend to be blue collar for 5 minutes, then that'll be enough. That'll give my life meaning. And even if he did it for 5 years, it probably wouldn't give his life meaning. You know, he'd understand physical exertion, but he wouldn't have the economic experience of that type of person. He wouldn't be able to identify with them in that way. He wants something genuine, something emotionally true, but he can't get it. It's just unavailable everywhere. Modern society has locked him away and walled him off from any kind of meaningful experience. And he's so fucking tired, man. Like, there's It's that meme of that meme where the Wojak or whatever is like, I have a tiredness that sleep can't fix. That's fucking poetry, man. I'm tired in a way that sleep can't fix. That's brilliant. That's borderline genius. I'm tired in a way no sleep can fix. You know, and again, here he is. He's like, oh, what if I ride public transit? You know, here I am. Here I am. I'm one of the masses. I'm one of the people. I'm one of you. I feel connected to you. And it's all artificial. It's all fake. And he hates it. He's like, how can this all be so fucking fake? Like, there's a type of punishment that improves your soul and allows it to emerge at the expense of your body. There's a type of punishment that the Christian or Judeo-Christian religions espouse that's like, we'll burn away your physical desires and then you'll be left with a spiritual purity. And it's like, there's another type of punishment that does the opposite. It punishes your spirit and elevates your body. And that's what this movie's trying to say, I think, in part, is that the West has conflated two different types of punishment. One type condemns your body at the expense of your spirit, and another type elevates your spirit and your body at the same time. I mean, it's so easy to be hoodwinked by some lifestyle that ends up bringing you down. You don't realize it till you're at the bottom. I mean, it's another way this movie kind of traffics in existentialism, philosophy, personal values, personal improvement, those sorts of things. He's got his blue glasses on again. This is his sister, I think, in the story. Again, I'm not commentating too much on the narrative because the narrative is very disjointed and kind of random. The overall themes are the focus of this whole thing. Now, does he be real with her here? Does he actually say something real to her? Now that he feels safe, now that he's out in the middle of the sea? I can't remember. Maybe he just fucks with her some more. I don't remember. Let's watch together and find out. Who is this chick? I hope this isn't his sister. I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's just a family friend. Whoever it is, she knows how fucked up he is. She's sympathetic. So he doesn't even say anything. It's like, you're the only person I trust, so I don't have to make a stupid joke. That's what real love is. If you can just hug someone and kiss them and not say anything, and you actually feel something, that's real love. If you have to say something to feel something, that's the first sign things have gone downhill. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just, you got to move on. You got to find somebody else. It's a pain in the ass, but it is what it is. Power through that shit. Again, there's some scenes in this I don't really think are necessary, like the toothbrushing scene. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, it wouldn't have saved much time to cut it, but he's brushing his teeth at work. I guess he's hungover. He's come in late or whatever. It seems like he's doing his job. I don't think he's shirking his job necessarily, but he's already sick of it. He's already, he's probably fucked up. He's probably drunk. When you're doing something you hate, let me tell you, you're going to drink, even if you think you're not. Oh, this poor girl. She's like an agent sent to placate him. She's like, I was a woman sent from Mossad to be your GF. Don't you like me? I was made just for you, to calm you down and satisfy you, prevent you from destroying the world. Aren't I good enough? He's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You think I don't know what fakeness is? You think I don't know what a construct is? You think I don't know what a replicant is? Please, do better. Or don't try at all. It's a waste of time and resources. It's a waste of people's labor. I really think I get my hands on. Again, he's sort of testing her. He's like, how resilient are you to my my bullshit? That's any relationship really is. You're just slowly revealing to the other person, here's all the bullshit that I have to deal with in my own life, and you're going to have to deal with it too. And are you resilient enough to do that? And the worst thing that can happen in a relationship is someone says, yes, I'm resilient enough, I'll be with you forever. And then it falls apart at some point later on because either you were lying about your needs and your flaws, or the other person was lying about their ability to cope with them and respond to them. Or both. The worst relationships are where both people are lying. Then they've got to mutually figure it out. And then he cuts his hand, of course. He's got this nasty cut. He has to get stitches. I've had stitches before. It's more awkward than anything else because it's not the pain that bothers you. It's the weirdness of it. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you have to pick at my flesh like this. Like, this is weird for both of us. It's a very awkward interaction when you have to get stitches. It's very strange. And I guess it's kind of like a sort of loss of virginity. Like, he meets this woman who seems to be able to endure his bullshit. And then, it's like he gets cut. It's like he gets exposed. He's vulnerable, Tim Heidecker was stabbed in real life, and he fucking ran into a gay bar. That's a common story. I don't know if that happened before or after this movie, but I don't know, man. That would change anybody. I don't know how I'd respond to that. I'd probably just want to find the guy who stabbed me and find a way to pay somebody to get him killed. I'd probably sell drugs till I had 15 grand and then go on the deep web and be like, hey, this dude who stabbed me is in prison and I want him dead. Can you just kill him? just have him killed. That's probably what I would do if I was ever stabbed by someone. But luckily I haven't been, so I have no unlawful impulses to speak of. I'm a lawful citizen. But yeah, if that scene happened after he was stabbed in real life, it's an interesting scene. And I guess here he's going to visit his dad. Is that the scene? Man, I had a grandfather who died very slowly. Not an uncommon thing, but not easy to watch. I read to him, because I like to speak. I like to hear myself talk. So I shielded myself from the spectacle of his death by hearing myself speak. That's how I dealt with it. And he's looking at random people. That's what he's doing. Confronting mortality, Yeah, this is how the game ends, my friend. At least in this society. Alternative is you die bleeding on a battlefield, or you die shitting yourself to death from some plague in some hovel of some city, or you die in a bog because someone throws you in for some fake god, But as much as we comfort ourselves, I think the Western method of mediating death is just something creepy about it. It's almost worse than something more direct, something more meaningful. It's like a meaningful death is a powerful spell. It's almost like that's the case. Like, oh, if you die meaningfully, there's some power in that. We want to just go ahead and very quietly take that away. We don't want you to die meaningfully. We want you to die meaninglessly in a comfy bed, Again, he probably wants to talk to his dad who's dying, but he can't, so he talks to these other people, It's this deferral or this avoidance of confronting something. Touches their face, like he touches the woman's eye, he touches their hair. He's trying to familiarize himself with age, with death. And like his comedy, it's not sufficient. I mean, again, he has this childlike impulse, and it only shows itself in this scene and then at the very end of the movie, where he's like, I don't want to take care of my dad, but I'll take care of you. You're someone who's not connected to me at all, but you're suffering too, and I can manage to take care of you. I can manage to be nice to you, I can at least be sympathetic to you. My sympathy has to go somewhere, God, the scenes. I remember watching this a few years ago and fucking crying. When he pretends to be the guy's son, where he just... Here's the point where he finds himself responding like the people that he hates, where he just goes silent. He goes stoic. He retreats into stoicism as a way of avoiding emotional expression. And stoicism, again, it's not a bad thing. There's a lot of times when stoicism's fucking great. Like, you should use it. It actually will strengthen you, but it can be a weakness too if you over depend on it. It's like he had to get injured to be sympathetic. It's like he had to be hurt to feel anything for anybody who was hurting. Like, he's so fucking naive. He's so spoiled by his upbringing that he doesn't have the emotional maturity to get life. Like, he's like a soul that's only been here 1 or 2 times. I mean, god damn, that would feel like hell, because you just wouldn't get anything. Like... again, if you ascribe to any sort of theory of reincarnation, a lot of them say that your memory's wiped. Most of them do, in fact, that I've read about. But you can still remember things if you're intuitive enough. You can still recognize, like, oh yeah, this is my 11th time here, or this is my 2nd time here. And God help the young souls. They're who you really should be sympathetic to. Anyone who seems like a being that's only been here, a couple of times. No matter what your level of intuition, no matter what you can hack out of the upper echelons of existence and remember who you are, no matter what you can or can't recall, it's way, way harder if you haven't been here very many times. Those of us who are compelled to teach, I think, are sort of on our last round, and we're desperately trying to tell the younger souls how to cope. He starts brushing his beard. He's like, "Look, I'm clean. It's fine." He brushes his nose. It's so fucking good, man. Oh my god, he puts it back in his mouth. Oh my god, dude. And she smiles. Oh my god, that's like God looking down on you, man. If a woman smiles at you for being who you are, that is like the face of God looking at you, man. That is like, it's like, I get you, I accept you. Love is so short. It's so fucking short, man. It's a flash in the pan every time. You can keep the stove on, you can heat the pan, but when it's done, it's done. They're smoking fucking crack. She's so pretty and so pure. What a good casting choice for this character, man. Her face and everything. There's no way we're gonna get off this boat. He's got some intuition. It's like there's no way this relationship will last. It's his boat, it's his sanctum, it's his fortress of solitude, it's his room, it's his house, whatever you want to call it. Just the impending sense of loss. Like, just by this movie's tone, you know, if you're half awake, you can figure, oh, the relationship's probably not going to work out, you know. This is too good for this movie. This is too positive, you know. There has to be a moment of positivity in this. I had this experience with an ex where I thought she was perfect. I mean, we've all had a relationship like that, but you know, I had this ideal that I wanted to impose on her, you know. And I lost the sense of what that ideal was, and at the same time I realized it was an ideal. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't real. It wasn't true. It was a lie. And when you realize that, I mean, there's no way to save the relationship in which you realize that. I mean, that's just the end. One of many ends. But in this movie, in this context, this relationship's sort of doomed from the start, because he's using his same tactics and wiles, and he's tempted to connect with her. This character, Tim's character, is like, I actually want to be real with you. Like, this is really frightening. Like, it's kind of incredible. They're like teenagers. I mean, these characters are in their late 20s or 30s, and they're acting like, you know, 18-year-olds. Fuck it, they're acting like fucking 16-year-olds making out in a car. You know, it's a naive expression of sexual exploration. It's meant to evoke that, I think. You know, both of them are kind of relying on excuses and other things. And this poor girl has a seizure. Poor thing. God damn it, Tim. This is the part in the movie where I lose a lot of sympathy for Tim, because I would have been like, holding her head and, you know, giving her something to bite. Like, how do you not know what a seizure looks like, you moron? But that's not the reason he's being indifferent. The reason he's being indifferent is he's like, oh, here's another negative. Here's another thing that I can use as an excuse to be distant. You know, here's another flaw. And it's you know, if your dad's dying and you see this shit, it's like, well, I can't deal with this, you know. I'm too much of a fucking child mentally to deal with something this serious. And he just, God, his fucking, the way he looks at her, it's so soulless, man. The irony of this is, you know, he's disgruntled and frustrated by soulless people not reacting to his comedic shit. And then he becomes this. He becomes soulless because he doesn't react to her having a fucking seizure. Like, he's so obsessed with protecting his own emotions that he's like, I'll just be indifferent to this. You know, I won't actually react to it. And he drives her back to shore. What a fucking dick. This part of the movie, man, it does, you know, it does make me go, okay, you know, this character's kind of a piece of shit. But again, you gotta wait till the end. You gotta wait till the last scene. That's the important part of this movie. I mean, what a douchebag. Like, I would have been like, are you okay? Do you want some water? Like, you know, I'm not turned off. I'm not off-put. You know, everybody has their flaws. If you're an epileptic or if you have a seizure every now and then, whatever, like, who cares? But it's like this crypto eugenics thing too, where he's like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to fuck you because you're flawed. And it's like, oh, dude, you're not flawed? Like, fuck you. He brings her back to shore in the middle of the fucking night. And what an asshole. Like, sorry, but no, I'm not sorry. He fucking pushes her out of the boat. What a fucking dick. She's got one flaw, and he's like, I can't deal with it. I'll see you at work. What a fucking psychopath, man. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, man. I'm turned off by your seizure, so I'm going to eject you from my boat. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, they're watching a slideshow. Interesting. Yeah, I don't remember this. So this is like it's like really meaningful, you know, it's like a showcase of memories, you know. Pissed because he was facing the gift shop. I wouldn't be surprised if these are genuine slides from like Tim or Eric's childhood. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the actors actually provided these slides. Be an interesting impetus for improv comedy. It's like he's trying to show something genuine. And how will Tim's character react? He's actually trying to say something meaningful. He's actually trying to show something genuine. And there's a fucking porno slide. Yeah. Christ. Wonder what that was. Wonder what that source of that slide was. Could have been faked, you know, even in 2012, you can fake an image like that pretty reliably, but kind of weird. He's interspersing fucking porno slides with this. It's like showcasing family history or being honest or forthright about your family history is like showing porn. It's very strange, the association here. I don't quite know what to make of it. I don't quite know how to interpret it. There's a voyeurism to it. I mean, you know, you can talk about the opening scene to this movie. You know, there's a voyeurism to film in general. There's a voyeurism to Hollywood. If you take a cosmological interpretation, there's a voyeurism to reality. You know. The song that's playing is like saying to scream out her hate. Everyone seems pretty sobered by this. It's a very strange scene. Like there's some kind of incestuous tone to this. Like there's some sort of familial abuse going on. I don't know what the implication is with this. It's like all these people are fucked up because, I don't know, their parents abused them or something. I don't know what the implication is. That's a potential interpretation, I guess, but anyway. Here we have another biking scene. He's getting his cardio in. That's not a bad thing. You should always get your cardio in. He's like, I'll burn off the emotions through biking. That's how I'll do it. That's what this scene is meant to imply. Works for a while, man. Like everything else, like every other method, it eventually fails. You got to address the root of the problem. Stop obsessing over band-aid solutions to it and go to the root. Attack the root of the diseased tree. Attack the root of the diseased tree. Do that. Stop trying to pick at the leaves. It's fruitless, literally and figuratively. This is the scene. This is the scene that defines the entire movie. And you can interpret it in a creepy way, or you can interpret it in a less creepy way. Gets off his bike, he's done his cardio, he's like, alright, I gotta dip in the ocean here. Cool off. I miss the ocean, man. I haven't seen the ocean in almost 20 years. It's just a cesspool of, you know, pollutants and salt and minerals and other shit, but, you know, has its value. It's nice. It's nice now and then to just dive into the saline pool of potentially life's origins. You know, it's nice to just feel like you're back in the salty womb of the ocean, you know. This character especially, you know, he's trying to return to innocence. He's trying to rediscover his sense of play, his sense of innocence, and he dives back in. And then he meets this kid. And when he splashes the kid splashes him back. Kid starts splashing him. It's like the son he never had, you know, son he couldn't have, son he couldn't will himself to produce or create. The son that there was no woman in his life, and there never would be, to bear his son. And the kid, unlike every adult, unlike every person in this movie, actually reacts to him, actually splashes him back. I mean, you know, there's an obvious creepy interpretation of this where you're like, oh, is Tim Heidecker a pizza lover? Is he a CP guy? And is that this movie advocating for that? Maybe it is. If it is, it's a piece of shit that should be burned. But the value of that scene is not in its literal portrayal. It's not like you know, the Netflix show Cuties, which is about girls putting on makeup to look like whores. You know, it's a movie where a man who has, for the entire film, displayed childlike characteristics as a means of coping with the shittiness of modern society, and everyone around him reacts to him like a cold robot, to the point where he's randomly at a beach just to cool off after a biking session, and there's a kid who splashes him, and it's like the first time in the whole movie that he smiles or laughs, and it's because the kid is treating him like a child. You know, if anything, it's a you know, motivating procreation type of scene where it's like, well, you should have a son, you should have a child. If you're disaffected, if you're depressed, if you're you know, feeling like your life has no meaning, it's probably because you haven't procreated. It's probably because you haven't had a family, and you need a child psychologically, you know, biologically to reinsert meaning into your life. I think that's the way to interpret that scene. I think that's the genuine intent of the filmmakers, was to do that. I don't think it was to do anything underhanded or seedy. Anyway, credits are rolling, guys, so I'm gonna wrap up the video here. We're at an hour and 32 minutes on the movie. Thank you for watching this commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. This movie's something that's stuck in my head. I've grappled with whether or not I want to have kids in my life. I still think I probably won't, for various reasons, but you know, I'm not the type of person who would ever impose my decisions upon others, or who would ever advocate for, you know, other people to copy my life because I need some kind of validation for it. It's like, no, you should have kids. That's objectively a good thing. Some of us can't or shouldn't. Some of us probably won't be able to for various reasons, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. It doesn't mean we're setting an example by doing that. And the same can be said of a lot of other personal choices and decisions. Again, not to get super serial, but you know, it is what it is, right? There are some of us who are, I think, meant to have kids. I think it's in the cards. I think we should. And there are others who are not. But we're meant to do something else with our lives that is hopefully equivalently meaningful, or approaches that level of meaning. So anyway, enjoy this movie. I hope you enjoyed the commentary. And as always, peace out, guys.